Behold, I am Queen Victoria, Empress of the United Kingdom and Ireland. Bow before me, for I am also known as the Queen of Hearts. Somehow, I am tasked with welcoming you to Hermetic journeys. I must reveal to you that I am unconvinced of the legitimacy of this program, and truthfully, I'm irritated having to make such an announcement. I am the Queen. Exactly what is a Hermetic journey? Just who is this TonyG anyway? I suspect he is merely a peasant and a charlatan. Begone, peasant! Your queen has no patience for this. Fetch me my croquet mallet so that I may indulge in my favorite pastime. What's that you say? We must look at an emblem? How dare you tell me what to do? How dare you interrupt my game of croquet? How dare you request an audience of me, TonyG? What is an emblem anyway, and why must I look at it? Where is my croquet mallet? Why aren't my roses red? Idiots! Imbeciles! Off with your heads!
Hello and welcome to Hermetic Journeys. Wow, a visit from Queen Victoria. Well, she seemed a little upset. But that wasn't the Queen anyway. Well, it was the Queen. It was my sister, Victoria. Yeah, her name's Victoria. She's amazing. Wasn't she great? Let's hear it from her. Thank you, Vicky, for putting up with me. In any case, there's a reason why Queen Victoria, or the Queen of Hearts, shows up in this video, and because we're looking at Mercury. It's a tribute to Mercury. Well, what does that have to do with the Queen of Hearts? We're going to find out, aren't we? Okay, so to those of you who continue to watch, thank you so much. Nice to see you again. And to new subscribers, hey, hello, how you doing? And if you're not subscribing, just watching, hey, nice to see you. Check out the subscribe button. But in any case, nice to see everybody. In any case, let's get started here. Let's take a look at this emblem. And I have to say, I'm very excited. First of all, because it's emblem number 10. Wow, we're 10 emblems into the 50. 1/5 of the way there. We're going to get there. It's going to take time, but we'll slowly get through this and have some fun while we're doing it. At least I'm having fun. I hope you're having fun too. Okay, this was the most difficult emblem to understand for me and to interpret, and I hope I've interpreted it correctly. So bear with me, and let's get started. Let's take a look at the emblem. Here we see a very unusual emblem. Well, they're all unusual. They're all somewhat strange. But this one is unusual in that we have two Mercurys, it appears, right? Or two Hermes. Hermes and Mercury were the same person. The Romans call him Mercury. The Greeks call him Hermes. And the Egyptians called him Thoth, and that's a whole other story. In any case, and standing next to the Mercury who's walking is a guy in red garb holding a torch. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, I think, this is really interesting. I think I've made some kind of discovery here. And I do a lot of research when I do these emblems, and I have never seen anything concerning this particular piece that I think I've discovered by looking very carefully at the emblem with a microscope there. Oh, that wasn't that was a magnifying glass. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, so let's take a look here. As you can see, the walking Mercury, and I've zoomed in on their faces here. The walking Mercury is a man, obviously masculine, right? He's got kind of I think he's sneering or something. It looks like a happy Mercury. Kind of a crappy, grumpy Mercury. But if we look at his counterpart, you'll notice, at least I believe, these are feminine features. These are female features, okay, with a man's body, right? Because the body's pretty buffed, okay, but there are female features. So what's going on here? I mean, if it's supposed to be Hermes, Hermes to Hermes, right, and it's supposed to be the same, why are there two different faces? Well, I started thinking about that. Got me really thinking about this particular emblem in terms of, masculine, feminine, and fixed and the volatile, right? So if we can postulate that the walking Mercury is masculine and therefore volatile, as we've explored in previous videos, right? The volatile is the masculine, the sun, right? Gold, volatile, right? And then the feminine, of course, is the fixed, the moon, silver, or Mercury sometimes, depending on what alchemical manuscript you're reading. Okay, so we have a fixed and a volatile thing going on. Who was the guy in red with the torch? All right, well, that's actually Vulcan. And Vulcan, as we're going to find out, plays a role in this particular emblem. Okay, the emblem, by the way, of course, was colored by the magnificent Adam McLean, okay, of alchemy website fame, and of course the original etchings by Matthias Marian, an incredible artist, okay, whom I deeply love, even though I never got to meet the guy. Still love him. In any case, so let's continue here. So what are we talking about here? We have a masculine and feminine thing going on with Mercury. Well, polarities, right? Does this remind you of another emblem, maybe? Yeah. How about the brother and the sister? Right, that really disturbing emblem with the brother and the sister dancing the dance, and there's Michael Meyer offering them the cup of love, right, to bind the two together. Right, they're opposites, yet they are of the same flesh. All right, just like we looked at the Kybalion, that wonderful book, and the principle of opposites, okay, where we have something like hot and cold, right? They are expressions of the same thing, right? Temperature. We have love and hate, expressions of the same very intense emotions, okay? They are opposites, yet they are complementary, and one cannot exist without the other. And we've explored this in several emblems. In fact, what's cool about Emblem 10 is I'm beginning to see how these emblems are connected, and I'm going to present this to you as I'm doing right here, okay? You can see these polarities, right? So to bolster this little theory of mine, I went back and looked at Robert Allen Bartlett's book, okay, Real Alchemy, and Bartlett literally states, there is a volatile and a fixed Mercury according. So I think I'm on the right track here, right? And let's see what the motto says. I never really looked at that, did I? The motto says, give fire to fire, Mercury to Mercury, and it is enough for you. Wow. Well, I mean, if that doesn't say it, you know, what does, right? You know, fire to fire, Mercury to Mercury. They are alike, okay? But yet there are some polarities because we have the male and the female Mercuries, right? The two faces are very, very different. So I'm going to jump into the discourse before we look at the epigram here, okay? So the discourse says, moreover, the same heat and cold, being distant only in place and situation, differs from another of its own kind, so as to attract to it that which is like to itself. Whew, that was a tongue twister. Yeah, so I think what Michael Myers is telling us here is that, yeah, the heat and cold, they're distanced only in place and situation. So they're distanced, right, because they're opposites, yet they are attracted to each other, right? Just like we looked at the Greek philosophers, you know, Empedocles and the attraction of opposites, okay? The love and the strife of Empedocles, remember him? It's kind of interesting stuff. So what's happening here is really, I think, the two Mercuries represent this, you know, a distillation process, or at least symbolically represent a distillation process, as did, as you recall, in Emblem 7 with the two eagles, right? The two eagles in the nest, the one had wings, the one did not. The one who had wings was trying to fly out of the nest, and the one that didn't was pulling him back. Okay, why? Because they had the bond of being brothers. We're told they were brothers. All right. So the two eagles, again, we have this cycle, and what's really cool is that this emblem, as we've explored, represented, in my opinion, the sequence of distillations, and each cycle of a distillation, right, is known as an eagle. Oh, so cool, right? That's why they're eagles, right? So all symbology, mythology, all that stuff. We're going to explore all that stuff. So now that we've kind of touched on that, let's take a look at Mercury as a substance. All right. Now, Mercury, of course, is a unique metal in that it is liquid. All right, which is really unusual. Now, the god Mercury, as we know, maybe we don't, but I learned this. The god Mercury exists between the realm of the gods and the realm of humanity. Right. He was able to go between as a messenger between both realms. Additionally, what I recently found out was that he had male and female lovers. Woo! So he was exploring both realms more than the Greeks let on, right? Or the Romans. Sorry. In any case, so we have this Mercury who has this this male and female thing going on here. And as we recall, Emblem 1, way back, the first video we did, actually was the second video, okay? So Emblem 1, we had the Boreas, all right, the Greek god of the wind, of the north wind, the cold north wind, all right, representing Mercury. He has the fumes coming out of his hands, you can see here, and his head. Yet inside him is this little sulfur baby, all right? So the sulfur is, as we know from previous videos, the secret fire. Sulfur is flammable, right? It's highly flammable. You know, when alchemists talk about sulfur, it doesn't necessarily always mean the element sulfur. What it means is something that behaves like sulfur, okay? So that's kind of important to remember as well. So in my mind, we have to kind of think of Mercury as yin and yang, right? Where you've got this perfect balance of masculine and feminine energies, the fixed and the volatile. Earthbound, like our bodies, and heaven-bound, hopefully, like our souls, okay? So that's how we have to think of it. But more importantly, and more to tip our hat to the alchemical philosophy, we have to think of Mercury as a hermaphrodite, or the rebus. We've mentioned that in previous videos as well. Here's a really cool picture. And if you'll notice, the rebus, or the hermaphrodite, is standing on a dragon or a serpent. In most cases represents Mercury in alchemical imagery. And of course, the rebus meaning two thing. It has masculine and feminine qualities. It has a male and female heads there, okay? And just like the seated Mercury and the walking Mercury in our Emblem 10 here, has the same qualities. Now, I'd like to introduce another image, not from Atalanta Fugiens, from Abraham Eliezer's book, age-old chemical work. I'm not even going to attempt the pronunciation of the work, so there you go. In this particular text in this image here, it says, as hermaphrodite, Mercury unifies the sexes within himself. When depicted as a dragon, he is flying and without wings. All right? So I think I'm on the right track here, right? So Mercury can be both masculine and feminine, or have elements of both within it. All right? And this concept is really important here, because that's exactly what's going on in this emblem, in my opinion. So I'd like to read one more excerpt from the discourse, all right, concerning the use of fire in the alchemical experiment, certainly concerning the use of fire in reference to Mercury in the creation of the Philosopher's Stone. So here it is. There must also be actual fire, which, notwithstanding, must be governed and qualified by its degrees as with bridles. So what's going on here? Well, actual fire, of course, we've been talking about the secret fire that resides within Mercury, the sulfur baby within Mercury. And a bridle, in this sense, of course, would be, that controls the direction of a horse, right? So what Michael Meyer's saying here is the alchemist must be very careful with how fire is used in the alchemical experiment to create the Philosopher's Stone. It must be a gradual fire, as we're going to find out here. For as the sun proceeding from Aries into Leo, and so approaching nearer, gradually increaseth heat to things growing. What does that mean? Well, the sun, in its travels over the course of the year, when it enters Aries, it marks the beginning of spring. Okay? Now, as the sun traverses through spring and into summer, in the dead of summer, it's in Leo. But that needs to be a gradual increase in heat. You don't want it to be really hot. You know when that happens, we all get pissed off when it gets really cold in the winter, or it gets really hot in the summer, and you think, wait a minute, I didn't have a spring, right? And that happens a lot here, right? Didn't have a spring, or I didn't have a fall because it got really cold, really hot. So what that's alluding to is in the alchemical experiment, in the creation of the Philosopher's Stone, is a gradual heat that is controlled by the alchemist. Remember the experiment that we read about in Real Alchemy by Robert Allen Bartlett, where he took an amalgam of mercury, gold, and star regulus of antimony, and hermetically sealed a flask and let it heat over a year and a half. It was something like a year and a half, right? But it was a gradual heat. It started at a particular temperature and it rose gradually over that course of time. So it has to be a gradual temperature for the Philosopher's Stone to evolve, just like it has to be a gradual temperature for us to have a nice spring and a nice summer, right? You don't want it too hot. To continue here, so it is here necessary to be done, for the philosophical infant must be nourished by fire, as with milk. And the more plentiful that is, the more he grows. Of course, a philosophical infant, as we know, is the Philosopher's Stone. And it must be nourished by fire. So, and again, this gradual fire. So that's what he's talking about in this particular excerpt. And I think it's really important to understand the alchemical process. And as we always do in these videos, I try and give you a little glimpse into what alchemists do in the laboratory. Okay, so my friend Steve Kalick and other people that help me understand this and help us understand it. And there's one more thing I'd like to talk about before we go into part 2 and meet our mystery guest. And that is, I'd like to read something to you from a wonderful compendium of alchemical manuscripts entitled Theatrum Chemicum, which was published in 1602 originally, and then inevitably in 1661. Why 60 years? Because this particular gentleman, Lazarus Zetzner, collected over the course of 60 years, actually he died 20 years before the book was finally published. His family helped finish publishing it, a wide variety of alchemical manuscripts. And this is considered to be the most important work in all of alchemy by some people. And the reason I'm showing you this is because in one of the sections here, one of the manuscripts within the Theatrum Chemicum, Mercury is talking about himself or herself, as the case may be, okay? So here we go. He says here, I am the poison dripping dragon. And of course we know, remember I said earlier, Mercury is typically represented as a dragon or a serpent, right? And he's poisonous, right? The fumes from Mercury are noxious. They can make you sick, and certainly if you get enough of it, you can die. There's that terrible urban legend about Isaac Newton being eventually going insane and dying from mercury poisoning. And I think recently found that that's not necessarily true. But it is interesting in any case. By the philosophers, I am named Mercurius. Okay, the philosophers, as we know, are the alchemists, all right? And his name is Mercury, right? My spouse is the gold, okay? Because you can't make the philosopher's stone without gold and without mercury, right? Continues here, I descend into the earth and ascend into the heavens. To me, that sounds like the fixed and the volatile, right? Through the distillation process, we have the fixed plant or metal, or earthbound, and as it's heated, and the vapors rise and they become volatile, right? And they are blessed by the auspices of the planetary powers that be, okay? And here at the end, the last piece here that I want to read to you is, I am the highest and the lowest, the lightest and the heaviest, I am dark and light. Okay, here we go again with complementary opposites, right? They're opposing but complementary forces, like the Kybalion, right? We talked about love and hate and hot and cold and how they are opposites, yet they are part of the same continuum, okay? So that's what we're talking about. And now it's time to continue our tribute to Mercury. So we will bring about our mystery guest, okay? In order to do that, though, we have to kind of close our eyes and concentrate and think about a magical, mystical place. And when you meet our mystery guest, you'll understand why the Queen of Hearts is at the beginning. It opens this video, Queen Victoria, my wonderful sister, and how that all has to do with Mercury. So let's close our eyes, concentrate, and imagine a mystical place. Here we go. Whoa. Oh, I'm the mystery guest. You may be asking yourself, why am I watching this? Well, besides that, you may be asking yourself, TonyG, why are you dressed up like the Mad Hatter? And what does it have to do with our tribute to alchemy and alchemical stuff? Well, that's a good question, and I'm actually going to give you an interesting answer to that question. All right, so speaking of hats, way back when in Egypt, felt hats were made using camel urine because it softened the felt to a certain degree, and it was a very nice, it gave a luxurious feel to the felt, and so that's what hat makers use. Well, that followed through to the French, and the French used to use their own urine, because they couldn't get camel urine, of course, to soften the felt. Well, there was one particular gentleman whose felt hats were luxurious. They were very, very nice, okay? And they couldn't figure out what was different. Was his urine any better than anybody else's? That's a weird statement. Never thought I'd be saying that. But in any case, What happened was, what they discovered was that this particular gentleman suffered from syphilis, okay? And back in the 1500s, remember our old pal Paracelsus, right? Theophrastus, Bombastus, Hohenheim. Well, he, remember, cured syphilis using small doses of mercury. In fact, Paracelsus, of course, as we know, was sort of the father of pharmaceuticals and things like that. He was the first person to use small doses of what would be considered poison in a larger dose to treat illnesses. And he actually cured syphilis back in the 1500s in Europe. It was rampant throughout Europe, and he cured it, okay? So this gentleman was doing the same thing. He was taking a compound of mercury to cure his syphilis. And the mercury was actually affecting the quality of the felt. It was making it even better than the hat maker's urine, okay? That's so weird. Right, so, okay, fast forward to the 1800s and fast forward to the colonies, specifically Danbury, Connecticut, which is where I live. Right here in Danbury was a massive hat-making facility, right? People made hats. And of course, instead of using urine, they started using mercury nitrate, I believe it is, some sort of compound of mercury, mercuric nitrate, okay? And that was used to treat the felt in the hats. And of course, you know, using mercuric nitrate made the hats really, really soft and pliable and lovely, okay? Well, what began to happen is as people purchased and wore these hats, okay, they started getting some neurological disorders, okay? In fact, it was so prevalent that they ended up calling it the Danbury Shakes because people were getting mercury poisoning from the hats. Are you ready for this? Hence the term, mad as a hatter. I couldn't resist. I hope you're still watching. In any case, so that's my story. But I do want to give credit to an alchemist that did use urine. Actually, his name is Hennig Brand, a German alchemist from the 1600s. And he, using urine in his laboratory, discovered phosphorus. And we talked about him several videos ago. So without, you know, Hennig playing around with urine in his laboratory, we wouldn't have phosphorus today, which is very, very important. So there you go. There you have it. So that's how this all fits in. That's why I had the Queen of Hearts, my sister doing the Queen of Hearts at the beginning. And that's why I'm the Mad Hatter now, because mercury was used to treat the felt in hats in the 1800s. Thus the term mad as a hatter. So enough of this silliness, and let's get on to part 3 of this video, where we're going to look at the beautiful music to Emblem 10. Enjoy! Well, that was really weird. So let's talk about the music to Emblem 10. What I'd like to do, because this is the 10th emblem we're looking at, is take a stroll down memory lane. Let's look at each emblem from 1 through 10 as we listen to the lovely music to this emblem. I downloaded the MIDI files from Adam McLean's wonderful Alchemy website, of course, and applied my own instrumentation to these files. So you can listen to a variety of instruments as we take a walk down memory lane, listening to the music from Emblem 10 by Michael Meyer. Well, I hope you enjoyed the lovely music to Emblem 10, and I hope you enjoyed our little stroll down memory lane, Emblems 1 through 10. How cool is that, right? Can you believe we're this far? I really enjoyed this. I am having so much fun doing this. Of course, I say this all the time. And I want to thank everyone, whoever you are, family, friends, people I don't know, for watching these videos. It really is so much fun for me to do. And I know I say this at the end of every video, but I'd like to just hit the high points for this particular emblem because it was so deep. So I got 4 points I'd like to go over to solidify the most important components to this particular emblem. Okay? Number 1, from an alchemical perspective, the 2 Mercuries, or 2 Hermes, represent the fixed and the volatile, and the cycle of purification through distillation sequences in the alchemical laboratory. Number 2, from a Hermetic philosophical perspective, as defined in the Kybalion, the 2 Mercuries represent the polarities, complementary opposites that are drawn to each other because of their mutual attraction. Number 3, from the Greek philosophers, Hippocrates and Empedocles, the ideology of the 4 elements and their attraction or repulsion through love and strife is represented in the imagery in Emblem 10. And finally, number 4. Mercury as a substance is unique in that it is a metal that is liquid at room temperature, and, like its mythological counterpart, the god Mercury, existed in 2 realms, that of humanity and the gods. And with that, I'd like to say farewell, but not goodbye. Until the next video, Emblem 11. Wow. All right, so thank you for staying with me. Thank you for embarking and staying with me on this wonderful, fun journey. I hope you're having fun like me, and I hope you're enjoying and learning something through these, like me as well, right? We're learning together as I go through these emblems. All right, thanks for watching, and see you soon.